Hello, you lovely people. Niho here from Niho Models and Art. And in this video, we're going to talk about some accessories that I would recommend you to get when you get more serious into model building. Some of them you will use more than others, but I consider them essential for some really cool techniques or even for some basic applications for your models. I won't go too much in detail about how the techniques work. There will be separate videos for every technique that I am going to tease here, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about these accessories. So, first, this is a little hand drill. I think it's from Revell. Sometimes you will have to open holes in your models for fixing some accessory parts, some details, an antenna, and yeah, they won't be molded into the model because that wouldn't be possible. So the instructions will tell you to drill holes yourself. This one is really neat because you can store the drill bits inside of the handle and quickly switch them by just twisting off the tip and inserting the drill bits. So really important. My recommendation would be, if you're drilling or if it's required to drill a hole, use the smallest drill bit. Don't go for the big one. Use the smallest. Try if the part fits. And if it doesn't, you can always widen the hole. If the hole is so big that even with the biggest drill bit, you can't fix the part, you can use a new tip of a hobby knife to carefully widen the hole and then fit the part in. That's for the drill. Next, and that's something you need in every single one of your models. I put the label off of this one, I don't know why. That's some decal soft or decal solution from Revell. What are decals? Decals are like water slide stickers that you put in warm water and then apply to your models. In theory, these decals will adhere to the model by themselves, but if it's a rough surface, if it's around the corner, if you have to put the decal over some detail, you will need to make the decal flexible, and you can do that with this decal solution. My personal tip, if you're applying decal solution, do it on a primed model that has some varnish on it. That's a no-brainer. We'll talk about primers and varnishes in the next video. Then you put a thin layer. You can see the applicator here. It's quite big. You put a thin layer of decal solution on the spot where the decal will go, and then you glide the decal onto the spot. Most of the times the decal will be movable because there is a thin layer of this water-like substance beneath it. So you can put it into place and apply some more decal soft on top of it, and that will make it stick to the model. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit because as the solution under the decal that you put under it and over it dries, it will pull itself onto the model. So just be patient, but like I said, we will do extra videos on how to use these in detail. Good. The next thing that has something to do or some applications for decal is a Q-tip. I need lots and lots of Q-tips, but not because I got dirty ears to clean them, but to clean up something like a decal solution. In theory, if the model is sealed with a varnish, it won't be any problem. But if there's still a lot of decal solution under the decal or at the side of it, you just take the Q-tip, hold it to the decal, and you absorb some of the solution. Even if it looks too dry, there is enough solution of the decal soft under the decal and over the decal to make it stick to the model. That would be one use for a Q-tip. Another one would be, we'll talk about oil and enamel colors later, but if you, for example, do some more advanced techniques like panel lining or oil pin washes, you will need to remove some of the colors, some of the oil paints. And you can simply do that with the Q-tip that's tipped in like something like an odorless thinner, which I'm going to present later in this video. So Q-tips, very important. Next thing, also a simple household item, toothpicks. Why toothpicks? Sometimes you need to just apply dots of paint, especially, or in my case, exclusively, when I'm working with oil paints over a primed, colored and sealed model. So you can just dab that into the color and put like really small dots on your model. But there's also almost way more obvious use for this when you're painting something like wheels. Because holding this in one hand and painting it, you will always get a lot of paint on your fingers. So it will be hard to paint and hard to dry. So you just take a toothpick. In this case, it's adhering by itself, but you can also use some putty. Put it like inside the hole from the sprue and just fix it with the toothpick. Also very important. The next household item. A simple, plain old kitchen sponge. This one lasted me for, I think, the last 20 models. What you do with it is something called sponge chipping, another technique we're going to talk about in depth. But simply what you do, you rip off a piece of the sponge. Oh, that's gone. You take off a piece of sponge, dip it in some paint, remove the paint on a paper towel and just lightly press it against the model. This way you can simulate chips or light areas of rust and makes the model look alive. Because for myself, I don't do like models that look factory new. I think planes, tanks and everything should be displayed used. So a simple kitchen sponge will do the trick by making your models like old and used. The next, I don't know if it's a household item, a candle. Why a candle? Because in some cases, or a lot of cases, you will have to fix tracks on your model. And most of the tracks, they come like in one large band, and you have to connect the two ends together. Some of these tracks you can glue together with plastic cement, some with super glue, but only if the instructions specifically say so. Don't try to use Tamiya cement or any other plastic cement on tracks if the instructions don't tell you that it's okay. I've did that with one model like months ago and it just melted the tracks. It melts them. So they were broken. I couldn't use them anymore. So what you would do is you light the candle, then you just take your hobby knife, best if you take an old blade and get the blade really hot. And then you can, on the seam lines from the tracks, you can press down and melt them together. So that will come in useful a lot of times. The next thing is another household item, hairspray. Why hairspray? I used it for 2 applications. There are specific products that are meant for these uses, but hairspray is just way cheaper. You will find so many alternatives, household items that are cheaper than the specific products from brands. But what you can do with hairspray is another technique of like chipping. So your model is painted, then you put a thin layer of hairspray on your model, let it dry a little bit, apply another coat of paint. Let's say you've got a green tank and want to give it some winter camouflage. Then you apply 1 or 2 layers of white, wait another hour, and then you just take, for example, a toothpick or like a toothbrush, dip it in some water, and you can remove some of the winter camo in this case, so that it looks like from all the weather and the use, some of the paint came off. Another good application for hairspray is when you want to simulate something like snow on a model. In this case, you would just spray a model from above, take a kitchen sieve, and with light taps, you would sprinkle the pigment on your model. We'll talk about pigments later, but hairspray, always good to have. And the last thing, that's not a household item, but is just necessary when you're working with oil or enamel paints, is odorless thinner or odorless white spirit. This is just like a turpentine replacement that you can use to mix your oil colors, that you can use to make streaks like from rust or dirt. Like I said, will all be separate videos, but odorless thinner, white spirit, very important. Now, this is odorless. I don't know how it tastes. I would not recommend it, but just because it's odorless, and your oil paints or enamel paints, they will smell, but this is odorless. Don't think this is any less toxic than the paints by itself. So if you're using this afterwards, I would suggest wash your hands, or if you want to be really careful, I mean, nothing's going to happen really, but if you want to be really careful, put on like one-way gloves or something. So these are some more essentials that I would recommend getting after you did like 1 or 2 models, and then you should be good. But almost forgot, there's one more. That's where you need the white spirit, and that's another product from Tamiya, that it's panel line accent color. This is the standard black one. What this does, think of looking at the model you want to build, pull up some real-life photos. You will see shadows in some corners, in some recesses. And with this panel liner, you can simulate these shadows, so it gives the model a 3D look. Because the models we're building, even in 1/35 scale, which I do most of the times, they are really small. So if they are not shadows, if you don't give them this 3D look, they tend to look very flat and toy-like. So this Tamiya panel line accent color is a great way to do it. You will need practice with this one, and you will need some varnishes, but that's the topic for the next video. For now, just keep in mind that these are some accessories that are semi-essential, some more than others. If I would recommend you getting some of them, get maybe all of it, but the hairspray, not necessary, and the drill, you could open the holes with a hobby knife, but be careful. But if you want to invest, get all of these accessories, like a candle, toothpick, Q-tip, and a sponge. You should have at home, but the rest is relatively cheap and lasts for a long time. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.